Hey everyone, so today I wanted to talk about some very interesting activity that's been going on recently on the Ethereum network, starting with this massive spike in Ethereum's on-chain transaction volume that happened in the past 24 hours. Now, this metric shows the amount of Ethereum that have been involved in all of the network transactions, and it sort of spiked out of the blue to about 4 million Ethereum total being transacted on the network in the last 24 hours or so. Now, if you look at the 6-month view, this is a massive spike. It's pretty much the biggest spike in Ethereum's transaction volume since the Black Thursday dump. So it caught my eye and it caught the eye of a lot of people. And at the same time, I noticed a correlating spike in Ethereum's age consumed. Now, this is a metric that tracks the movement of previously dormant coins. So a spike in Ethereum's age consumed indicates that a substantial amount of coins that have not really changed addresses for a while are now once again on the move. So this can obviously sometimes signal, a major shift in the behavior of some long-term holders, and that's why you'll notice that a bunch of previous spikes in Ethereum's age consumed tend to correlate with either local tops or local bottoms for the price of Ethereum. So these two spikes caught my eye yesterday because they were just so massive and came out of the blue, and thankfully it wasn't very difficult to figure out where they came from. So if you have access to sand data, you can do this yourself. If not, the link will be in the description of this video. But what you can do is you can simply scroll down here to the tab called Top Ethereum Transfers and select your time frame. Here we're going to look at the last 2 days. And what our system will do is it will filter out the biggest transactions involving Ethereum in the past 2 days. And immediately you can see that one transaction, obviously these two are interconnected, one transaction is almost 10 times bigger than the next one on the list, and is probably the main reason for this massive spike in Ethereum's transactional activity. So if you click here and open the transaction details on Etherscan, it becomes very clear what this is about. So this is the PlusToken address. This is a well-known Ponzi scheme, and it seems like they are now moving all of their coins. That's almost 800,000 Ethereum, or about $185 million worth of Ethereum, and they're doing this after about 182 days of inactivity. And this is why we've seen this spike in Ethereum's age consumed as well. Now, if you then track the transaction flow from here on out, you'll be able to see that they've kind of been chopping out these transactions in a lot of smaller transactions. It looks like they're trying to launder their coins through a mixer or something. But the big thing to know is that so far, at least as far as I've been able to tell, these coins have not yet hit exchanges. But the move itself has already kind of spooked some people. Some people on the market are already kind of saying that they're getting out of Ethereum because it's too risky at the moment. PlusToken fears have definitely contributed to some people thinking that it's probably a good time to go into safer, quote unquote, digital assets. So I thought, okay, let's see how the network itself reacted and how different stakeholders on the Ethereum network have reacted to this PlusToken news. And in general, let's see what Ethereum's on-chain and social data is telling us right now about, what is the short-term price potential for Ethereum. Now, even though the PlusToken Ethereum coins have not yet hit exchanges, we have seen some elevated activity surrounding Ethereum on exchanges. In particular, we've seen a rise in the, let me zoom in a bit just so you can see this move. We've seen a rise in the amount of Ethereum located in known exchange wallets. So it would appear that, whether this is connected to the PlusToken news or not, around 240,000 Ethereum have been moved to exchanges in the past few days, indicating, some rising sell pressure pretty much for the first time since the consolidation period for Ethereum started. So there's definitely some additional amount of sell pressure here going on. Whether this will tank the price of Ethereum or not, it does remain to be seen. But if you take a look at some of the previous spikes in Ethereum's supply on exchanges, let's, for example, zoom in here, you'll definitely see that they do correlate with, local tops for Ethereum. Sometime you can see here a spike in Ethereum's supply on exchanges right before the correction. This spike in Ethereum's supply on exchanges right at the start of the consolidation period. So this is definitely sort of a yellow flag as far as Ethereum's short-term price potential is concerned. Now, moving from exchanges to the behavior of the Ethereum whales, there was also some very interesting activity that we can see here in Ethereum top holders. Now, let me just set this up so you can see exactly what I want to show you. Let's, for example, take the last 6 months and zoom into this chart. So what you're seeing here is the total balance of the top 100 addresses holding Ethereum that do not belong to exchanges. So these are just the biggest Ethereum whales, and we can plot their holdings against the price of Ethereum as well. So you'll notice that they've been pretty loyal to their bags since the consolidation started. In fact, the last time they really moved parts of their bags was right before Ethereum's latest stop here, right? So if we switch to the holdings of the biggest exchange addresses at the time, there was a correlating spike as well, which kind of makes sense, right? It does look like Ethereum whales have started dumping their coins on exchanges at this time, which is what probably contributed to a start of this very uncomfortable and long consolidation period for Ethereum. Now we can see that in the past few days, the Ethereum whales have started moving some of their bags again. Their total balance has shrunk by about 520,000 Ethereum since this Monday. And if we go back to Ethereum supply on exchanges, it seems to be in line with this increase in exchange-bound Ethereum supply in the last couple of days. Now, obviously, this is not, the largest move that we've ever seen by Ethereum whales, but it's definitely notable enough because it's the first real sign of activity since the consolidation started. So we've got Ethereum being moved to exchanges, and we've maybe got some potential sell pressure by the top Ethereum whale. So to be honest, I'm not really surprised at all to see this drop in Ethereum's price today. Even if Bitcoin didn't dump, I think the stage was already kind of being set for at least a small correction for Ethereum. And another thing pointing to this is this particular chart. And this is Ethereum sentiment on crypto social media. So at Sentiment, we track over 1,000 different crypto social media channels, and we've developed an algorithm that labels all of the incoming messages as either positive or negative or ambivalent. And in any case, this chart is showing the average sentiment of messages mentioning Ethereum on crypto-related Twitter channels in particular. So I'm using Twitter here, even though we have a bunch of different channels that we track, because our model and our algorithm has been trained on Twitter data, so this is usually the most reliable source of information. So the 0 on this chart means that the sentiment towards Ethereum on Twitter is pretty balanced. There's an ambivalence in the crowd, there's sort of an equal pull between bulls and bears, right? The spikes mean that the sentiment is increasingly to extremely bullish, or increasingly or extremely bearish. So you can see that Ethereum sentiment was actually extremely bullish here in the past couple of days to start the week, pretty much. This isn't typically a very good sign for Ethereum's price. Usually these are moments where we encounter peak hype, so to speak. The crowd starts to FOMO in and whales start to dump. And so you'll see that a number of previous stops for Ethereum have also kind of had this similar spike in Ethereum's bullishness or bullish sentiment on crypto-related Twitter channel. Now, you might ask, why would the crowd be so bullish on Ethereum here, even though Ethereum has been pretty lazy over the past couple of weeks? Now, I personally think this is due to a few reasons. Number one being the DeFi coins, which have kind of been pumping like crazy. If you haven't noticed, there's a massive wave of DeFi adoption. So all of these protocols or most of them live on the Ethereum blockchain. So I've seen a lot of people speculate that this DeFi wave should kind of also have a positive impact on the price of Ethereum too. And then on the other hand, I've also seen some technical analysts suggesting that this prolonged consolidation is actually creating some bullish TA setups for Ethereum. So I think these are probably the reasons why we have seen this rise in Ethereum bullishness. And Ethereum was pretty much screaming, the sentiment was pretty much screaming for a correction. And that's exactly what happened in the past 24 hours or so, probably because of both the dump and the PlusToken news, which I think is actually pretty good for Ethereum moving forward, because a lot of its price rallies in the past usually started from a predominantly bearish atmosphere and territory. So if you really want Ethereum to pump, what you probably want to see is this chart continue to decline and go deeper into a bearish sentiment in the next couple of days. So that's as far as some bearish indicators for Ethereum are concerned, which I think might have contributed to today's drop that we've seen in the past couple of hours. Now, it's not all bad news for Ethereum. And in fact, if you look at its network activity overall, starting with daily active addresses, let me just zoom out a bit so you can see the strength of this move. You'll see that the amount of unique addresses interacting with Ethereum every day has been on an uptrend effectively ever since the end of January. And it's now very close to the highest levels that we've seen in 2019. Actually, let me zoom in or zoom out to the entire 2019 as well. Yeah, so you can see that the amount of daily active addresses for Ethereum is very close to the biggest high that we've seen in 2019 as well. So the same thing can be seen with the new addresses or network growth. This calculates the new addresses that are being created on the Ethereum network, which has also been on the incline. It actually decreased a bit here during the consolidation period, but now it's back to onboarding new addresses and new users to the Ethereum network in the past couple of days. So there's definitely enough, let's call it network support or fundamental support for the price of Ethereum to rise. So what we want to pay attention to in the next couple of days is going to be the behavior of these large Ethereum addresses and then the exchange related activity, most notably the coin supply on exchanges. So if we see this pattern of whale and speculator sell-offs continue, this could be a worrying sign for the short-term price of Ethereum. And anyway, you can check out all of the metrics I mentioned in this video on sentiment.net. The links will be in the description of this video. And let me know in the comments what you guys think. Have you been seeing the crowd kind of turn bearish and the talks of sell-offs kind of increase? And what do you think is likely to happen to the Ethereum price in the next couple of days? Let me know, and I'll talk to you soon.